You're watching Sky News at 6 o'clock. The top stories. A shooting at a synagogue in America. At least 8 people are reported dead.
The suspect in the shooting is in custody. We have multiple casualties inside the synagogue. We have 3 officers who have been shot.
President Trump has told people in Pittsburgh to remain sheltered. We'll have the very latest from the scene.
Will you respond to those who've made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Start to really annoy me.
Go away.
Tracked down but not backing down, Sir Philip Green takes on his accuser. The billionaire says he'll complain over his naming by a peer over harassment claims. He says it's a malevolent diversion. Also tonight, shutting up shop, the government's £1 billion promise to the high street. The concerns for England's former manager Glenn Hoddle after he collapses at a TV studio. And the photo fit misfits that police say still really do help fight crime. Very good evening to you. Police in the United States say there are multiple casualties in a shooting near a synagogue in Pennsylvania. US media is reporting that at least 8 people have now died. Police have said 3 of their officers were shot and the suspects now in custody. President Trump said tonight that those who commit such crimes should face the death penalty. Well, the shooting took place in the city of Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life Synagogue in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood. And this is what the police have had to say.
The suspect in the shooting is in custody. We have multiple casualties inside the synagogue. We have 3 officers who have been shot. And at this time, we have no more information because we are still clearing the building and trying to figure out if the situation is safe, if there are any more threats inside the building.
Amanda Walker's in Washington for us tonight. And Amanda, in the last few minutes or so, President Trump has been speaking about this.
Yeah, he's on his way to an event, and he said he would be making a statement at that event, but he spoke to reporters on the way there, referring to this madman, this wacko, using typically Trump language to describe this situation that happened just 3 hours ago. So police still dealing with a very immediate situation, trying to deal with people in the area, to keep people safe, to deal with those people who have been wounded, and also to deal with the people who have been killed in this shooting at this synagogue. Now, President Trump was asked immediately, as so often happens in these situations, it sparks that debate about gun control. Here was his response to that question.
Gun laws, Mr. President.
Well, again, this has little to do with it. If you take a look, if they had protection inside, the results would have been far better. This is a dispute that will always exist, I suspect, but if they had some kind of a protection inside the temple, maybe it could have been a very much different situation.
Now, this synagogue is a landmark building in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood. It has a strong Jewish community in this area. It really is a focal point for this community. Very busy, of course, on a Saturday morning. This is from their website, from our warm, inviting and intellectually stimulating atmosphere to our fun adult, children and family programs. It's the perfect environment to grow a strong faith rooted in tradition. What they've experienced there this morning at this supposedly safe environment is absolutely unimaginable, as the police still try to contain this situation. The suspect, we know from the police, is in custody. We don't have direct numbers in terms of the numbers of casualties and fatalities yet from the police. They're normally pretty swift at giving those kind of updates. But we can hear now from a local reporter who was at the scene.
I just talked to Augie Siriano. He is the 25-year maintenance man at the Tree of Life. He was inside one of the restrooms, inside an unused room at the time, and he told me he heard pop, 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 and he went outside, and he described the scene. He immediately turned around and then ran out of the building. We can tell you that Rabbi Jonathan Perlman from the New Light congregation. There are 3 different congregations that hold their services on Saturday mornings here. It's Tree of Life, it's New Light, and it's Dor Hadash, and all 3 hold simultaneous services. The Dor Hadash is led by lay people in the Squirrel Hill area, but this is a place where dozens of families start their weekends for decades. They come to Tree of Life, and I just talked to Augie, and he's in shock right now. What he described to me, he did see one of the congregants down, and He said immediately a police officer came in. He was holding his phone. He got down and told the police officers, "I'm calling 911 right now. I'm calling 911," and he was able to be ushered out of the building safely.
Update from the Pennsylvania Attorney General, who says that this gunman claimed innocent lives at a baby naming ceremony. That's when a baby is given their Hebrew name. So you can imagine families at this event, a very special event for those families, being completely destroyed in the most unimaginable circumstances. The police haven't given a media statement yet in front of the cameras. We do know that local media is reporting that the gunman was shouting anti-Semitic rhetoric when this happened. That hasn't been confirmed by the police yet, but there certainly is a very highly charged atmosphere in America at the moment. When you look at that attempted bombing campaign that was happening throughout last week, there is a debate going on at the moment as to whether inflammatory rhetoric causes violence, and that is going into the midterm elections with just days to go. There is a sharp divide in this country. There is a very highly charged atmosphere, and situations like this only really compound that very anxious mood in America at the moment.
OK, Amanda, thank you. We just got an update coming in from the Reuters news agency that the gunman had yelled, "All Jews must die." And we now know, according to US media, that at least 8 people have died. Many more, in fact, about 12 seriously injured, including 3 police officers. We'll bring you the very latest on that story, of course, as and when we get it. Now, the businessman, Sir Philip Green, was accused of a malevolent diversion today by the law that he says he'll report to the parliamentary authorities. Lord Haynes said he stood by his decision to name the Topshop owner as the subject of allegations of sexual harassment and also racial abuse. Well, Sir Philip denies those claims, but he had little else to say when tracked down by Sky News. Our US correspondent Greg Milam was the first to find him in Tucson, Arizona, in the United States.
This is where Sir Philip Green usually comes for the good of his health.
Just ask your reaction to the
You need to leave. You're not understanding.
Son and return to the UK, but the questions will be waiting to meet him there too. Greg Milam, Sky News, Tucson in Arizona.
Now, Lord Hayne could, in theory, be expelled from Parliament if the authorities there judge that he abused his position. The threat to Sir Philip Green's reputation over the claims, which he denies, are twofold. He could face losing his knighthood, and his shops could lose customers. Sky senior correspondent Lisa Holland has this report.
Will you go away?
Philip Green is no stranger to controversy. This was Sky News in hot pursuit of the billionaire back in 2016, posing questions about the pension black hole triggered by his sale of the high street chain BHS.
We're asking you questions.
That none of the current accusations against him should have been put into the public domain. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
Chancellor Philip Hammond will unveil his latest budget on Monday. We've had the first indication of what to expect. A £1.5 billion plan to save the UK's ailing high streets. Well, as competition from online retailers bites, the Chancellor's plan aims to bring town centres back from the brink. The plan includes cuts to business rates and a new infrastructure plan. Sky's Charlotte Lomas now reports.
Closure after closure after closure. It's the bleak picture on this high street in Slough and one replicated up and down the country. The Chancellor's plan will provide much needed short-term relief to the high street, but critics say much more needs to be done to save it. Charlotte Lomas, Sky News.
Well, we can take you live to a press conference now. Let's listen in on the latest from Pennsylvania.
As soon as possible. A further brief press conference will be held at the County Emergency Operations Center at 4 p.m. this afternoon, of which the elected officials and first responders will give you, as well as the FBI, will give you an update. At this time, this is being considered a federal violation, and the primary investigative agency will be the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I would like to personally thank the many first responders that had responded to this incident today, to include the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire, Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, the EMS, Allegheny County Police, and FBI, ATF, and numerous others that I can't even count how many first responders are here that are providing assistance. This will be a lengthy crime scene. We're asking people that don't need to be in this area, please stay away from it so that both the investigators and first responders can do their job. I will emphasize at this time, there appears to be no active threat to the community. This individual that we believe the subject that is responsible for this has been taken in custody. That's all I have.
Can you go over what happened?
I don't, that's going to be part of the investigation.
Can you do the numbers one more time for us? For the injuries.
On the injuries, we believe 6 injuries, 4 of which are police officers. So it's a total of 6 injuries.
How many fatalities?
I will not discuss that yet until we are sure of the number.
Are children among the deceased?
I don't want to get into that at this point.
It's been reported that he screamed, "All Jews must die." Is that true or false?
There's a lot of information. I'd be very cautious on what you hear and what you don't hear at this time. Like I say, we have numerous investigators here. I would ask that if anyone has any information regarding the investigation, that they also call that 412-432-4400, and that will put you in contact with the FBI.
Wendell, can you tell us what the situation was in there? How many people about were inside?
I don't have that
was
answer.
A service going on?
I do not want to give you, my understanding was there was a service occurring.
Has the security in place been lifted? Can people in Squirrel Hill leave their houses?
That is correct. However, we are setting up a very hard perimeter around the crime scene, and we ask individuals to stay away from that. So there will be a very secure presence around the crime scene just to protect the integrity of the investigation.
The person taken into custody, any weapons recovered off this person?
I don't want to get into that.
You believe he acted alone, 100%?
I don't want to get into that. Right now, what we have is one subject in custody from the scene. Whether or not, as all these investigations, we have to look into every imaginable fact to find out if there is anyone else that's been involved in it.
What's the next step for you, sir?
I'm sorry?
Is there any evidence of a bomb?
There is not. Explosive ordnance disposal teams went through the scene, and there is no evidence of any IEDs or any further threat.
Wendell,
what's the next step for you, sir?
You sounded very emotional. A hand was placed on your shoulder. Tell me how you feel right now.
It's a very horrific crime scene. It's one of the worst that I've seen, and I've been on some plane crashes. It's very bad. All right, so
what's his identity?
I do not want to get into that. Like I say, there's a very active investigation going on right now.
Who's
Have you identified him? At 4 o'clock?
I'm sorry?
Who are we going to hear from at 4 o'clock?
You will hear from myself, the SAC, Special Agent in charge of the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, as well as the elected officials.
A lot of moving parts today. What's the next step here?
The next step is secure the crime scene. The FBI has both assets from both Western Pennsylvania and from D.C. en route here, so they will be running the investigation and the crime scene with the support of both the Allegheny County Police and the City of Pittsburgh Police.
Did the shooter actually attend the synagogue at any?
I have no idea. I'd like to also mention the state police. They've been instrumental in helping us out as well.
Just to be clear, is it 6 people or at least 6?
As far as the injuries, right now we're at 6 injuries.
Did you identify the gunman?
It's an active investigation. I mean, obviously we know who the gunman is, but I'm not going to bring that up now.
Why are the feds conducting the investigation?
As I mentioned before, this falls under a hate crime, being it's a Jewish synagogue, so it will be basically a federal investigation with the assistance of the locals, county, and state police.
Is the shooter among those injured?
The shooter was taken to the hospital, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
Well, there we go. That's the Pittsburgh Public Safety Director speaking there, and he confirmed that 6 people are injured, among those 4 police officers. And we now know, according to US media, that at least 8 people have died. Now, he said that the shooter had been taken into police custody. He'd been taken to hospital, he said there. There'd been a thorough check of the synagogue. Explosive teams, he said, had gone through that. He didn't want to discuss any of the fatalities himself. He said there is no longer a threat to the community, and obviously this will be now subject to investigation. But he did say it will be investigated as a hate crime, as a federal investigation. And he warned people to be very cautious of the reports at this stage that they are hearing, But when describing the crime scene, he said it was one of the most horrific that he'd seen in his time as public safety director. But he did say at this stage there is no threat to the community. We'll have the very latest on this story from Pittsburgh coming up after the break. Let's cross over now to the Sky Sports News Centre for an update.
Thanks, Becky. Liverpool are 3 points clear at the top of the Premier League.
Now, police divers are searching the River Darrant in Dartford in connection with the disappearance of missing mother of 5, Sarah Wellgreen. She was last seen on October the 9th. Kent police are treating her disappearance as a potential murder. Sky's Lorna Shattuck joins us with the latest.
That's right. Well, a team of around 6 or so members of the Kent Police Marine Unit have been searching this stretch of river just behind me, the River Darrant, on Sunday.
Time now to get a check on the weather.
From warm, flowing island winds to an enchanting desert breeze.
Many places will be dry and sunny tomorrow, but the northeasterly wind will bring showers to southern and eastern parts. Before then, though, most places will see any showers tending to die out this evening, but they will keep going over eastern Britain, some heavy with hail and thunder. There'll be some snow on northern hills. Many places will be dry overnight, but showers will continue over eastern parts of Britain and Ireland, concentrated over the windy southeast of England. Light winds and long clear spells in the north and the west will bring an extensive frost with a risk of ice, but the southeast will be just about frost-free. Sunday morning, it'll be mainly dry and sunny, but there will be a few potentially wintry showers around, with eastern England most at risk. It'll be pretty cold, but not as cold as today, with a stiff wind in the southeast. The afternoon will turn fine for most, but showers will linger in North Sea coasts.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, we'll have the very latest on the Pittsburgh Synagogue shooting. More coming up after the break. You're watching Sky News. The top stories this hour. At least 8 people are reported to have died in a shooting at a synagogue in Pennsylvania. Lord Haynes says he stands by his decision to name Sir Philip Green in Parliament as the businessman behind an injunction to stop the publication of harassment allegations. Former England manager Glenn Hoddle is seriously ill in hospital after collapsing on the set of a television programme. Well, let's return to our top story now. Reports of at least 8 people dead in a shooting at a baby naming ceremony at a synagogue in Pennsylvania. The gunman reportedly shouted, "All Jews must die." Police have said that 3 of their officers were shot and the suspect is now in custody. Well, the shooting took place in the city of Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life Synagogue in the Squirrel Hill neighbourhood. And this is what Pittsburgh's Public Safety Director, Wendell Hisrich, had to say a few moments ago.
As the mayor mentioned, we've had a tragedy here today. The work of the first responders has probably prevented it from becoming much more tragedy than what it is. The scene is very bad inside. There are multiple fatalities. There are at least 6 injuries, to include 4 police officers. The police officers' injuries at this time are non-life-threatening. The other individuals are critical and serious in nature. They were taken to 3 of the level 1, level 2 trauma centers here in the city of Pittsburgh, that being Allegheny General, UPMC, and UPMC Presby and UPMC Mercy.
Now we've got a bit of breaking news to bring you from Associated Press. They are reporting that suspect has been identified as a man called Robert Bowers. We know that he is now in police custody. We've heard that he was taken to hospital. You heard from the Pittsburgh Public Safety Director in that clip a little earlier on. He described the crime scene as being absolutely horrific, the worst that he had ever seen. He confirmed that 6 people have been injured. 4 of those are police officers. And we understand, according to US media, that at least 8 people have been killed in this shooting. We're told that there is no threat now to the community, but of course investigations are now ongoing. We're told that this will be looked into as a hate crime, so it will be a federal investigation. And as you can see, the pictures on the screen at the moment, this is a live crime scene. Police officers, they're at the scene at the moment, all cordoned off as Investigations continue. We know that explosive teams have gone through the synagogue, and as I say, it is being investigated as a hate crime. The President, Donald Trump, spoke a little earlier on, and he was asked about gun crime.
Gun laws, Mr. President.
Well, again, this has little to do with it. If you take a look, if they had protection inside, the results would have been far better. This is a dispute that will always exist, I suspect, but if they had some kind of a protection inside the temple, maybe it could have been a very much different situation.
President Trump speaking there. As I say, we now know that at least 6 people are seriously injured, including 4 police officers. According to US reports in the media, at least 8 people have died in that shooting. And we're hearing that it is being investigated now as a hate crime. It happened earlier on today at that synagogue in Pennsylvania. We will, of course, bring you the very latest on that as and when we get it. Now, Ireland's President Michael D. Higgins is likely to be re-elected later on today for a second term. Counting has begun in the country's presidential election, and he's expected to win by a landslide. Well, we can show you now the scene outside Dublin Castle, where we expect Michael D. Higgins to arrive shortly. But joining us now from central London is historian of Irish politics, Professor Jonathan Moore. Good evening to you, Mr. Moore. It's not come as a great surprise, has it?
No, it's absolutely predictable. The most surprising thing about this is that there were so many candidates who put their name forward because Michael D. Higgins is a popular figure in Ireland, and he has won by a very large majority. In one sense, it's astonishing that we actually had an election, because I think a lot of people early on thought what we would have is an uncontested election.
But of course, during the campaign, things are obviously brought out about candidates. And in his case, it was mooted that he'd taken a private jet from Dublin to Belfast, with many people said that he could have taken a car. And that was a bit of a controversial issue, wasn't it? That
was the most controversial part of the election for the president. He was accused of having, misused public money. He could have travelled in a much cheaper way, but it doesn't appear to have done him any harm whatsoever.
In the Republic of Ireland, the role of president, I suppose it's more of a ceremonial role, isn't it?
I think it would be safe to say that this is probably the president in the world with the least powers. But symbolically, it's a very important job. It used to be given to retired politicians to say thank you. And then along came Mary Roberts in the early 90s, and then Barry Achilles, and now Michael D. Higgins, who've been seen as being fantastic ambassadors for the country, and who have reached out to the community. But in terms of formal powers, the president has very, very few powers.
If the exit polls are to be believed, Sinn Féin have performed pretty poorly. What do you make of that?
They are the only major political party who put a candidate forward. Quite why they put a candidate forward, I'm not sure. And even when I asked them, they didn't give me a very clear answer. She's a strong candidate, the daughter of Ireland's most famous composer. And I don't think it's a reflection on her, but quite simply, she appears to have attracted no interest whatsoever. And my guess is that quite a number of Sinn Féin supporters voted for Michael D. Higgins rather than their own candidate. But it's not a good result. It looks like she'll come in single figures.
And what do you make of the low turnout then?
Utter predictability in the result. I mean, the turnout appears to be under 50%. It's never that high. I mean, 7 years ago, it was 56%. I mean, quite simply, this is an election which has failed to ignite much interest in Ireland, as predictable elections often have that effect. Half the electorate couldn't be bothered to go out and vote.
And of course, it wasn't just, an election for president, but also this referendum on blasphemy laws, because this largely came about because of comments that Stephen Fry had made. Am I right?
That's absolutely right. It's a bit of an anachronism that blasphemy is not just illegal in Ireland, but it's in the Constitution, the 1937 Constitution, and it says how irrelevant the clause is, that there hasn't been a successful prosecution under blasphemy laws since the mid-19th century. Removing it is not going to make any difference whatsoever. But a few years ago, Stephen Fry made what was seen by some people as being very inappropriate comments about God, and there was an attempt to use the blasphemy laws. That wasn't successful, but I mean, they are a complete anachronism, and removing them will make no difference whatsoever, apart from showing that the church in Ireland is not the force it once was. They spoke out, the Catholic Church spoke out and said how they think blasphemy should be treated by the law. But, you know, we now have same-sex marriage in Ireland. The constitutional ban on abortion has gone. The Catholic Church is a far, far weaker body than it was only 20 years ago, and this is yet another defeat for them. So symbolically, that is quite important. But in practical terms, the blasphemy laws are completely irrelevant.
OK, Professor Jonathan Moore, thank you for your expertise and speaking to us here on Sky News. Let's show you one more shot of the castle here. Of course, we are expecting Michael D. Higgins to turn out there at any moment. According to the exit polls, he has won 58% of the vote. So it is a landslide. And like I say, we are expecting him to turn out there in Dublin in the next hour or so, I think. So we'll keep you updated with that as and when it happens. An e-fit of a suspected burglar has caused uproar after being posted on social media by South Yorkshire Police. Electronic facial identification technology uses descriptions from a victim or witness to generate a computerised image of what it believes the criminal looks like. So even when they look comical, can these photo fits actually help officers to solve crimes? Katie Spencer has this report.
He was male with black or brown eyes, maybe a small nose. Our ability to recognise faces varies enormously. Well, you never know. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up Now, we've been updating you on that developing story from Pennsylvania. A shooting happened at a synagogue earlier on today. According to reports in US media, at least 8 people are thought to have died. Now, in the last few moments, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been speaking. Let's have a listen to what he's had to say.
I was heartbroken and appalled by the murderous attack on the Pittsburgh Synagogue today. The entire people of Israel grieve with the families of the dead. We stand together with the Jewish community of Pittsburgh. We stand together with the American people in the face of this horrendous anti-Semitic brutality. And we all pray for the speedy recovery of the wounded.
Now, they have said they are treating it as a hate crime, and of course we will bring you the very latest on that story as and when we get it. Now though, let's cross over to the Sky Sports News Centre for an update.
This programme is brought to you by Vitality Health and Life Insurance.
You see, they even teach them how to cuddle. Masterclass.
Getting active brings its own rewards.
Good evening. Qualifying for the Mexico Grand Prix begins shortly. There's more Premier League reaction now on Sky Sports News. We're back at 7:30 with Sportsline.
Help! Help! I'm surrounded by sausages.
Time now to get a check on the weather.
By the springtime flowers of a mountain lake to the first snowfall on a winter's day.
Many places will be dry and sunny tomorrow, but a northeasterly wind will bring showers to southern and eastern parts. Before then, though, most places will see any showers tending to die out this evening, but they will keep going over eastern Britain, some heavy with hail and thunder, and there will be some snow on northern hills.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, we'll have the very latest from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, where at least 8 people have died after a gunman opened fire. More after the break.